like first paying client, I was like paid to learn again. And I still look at it that way. If there's something where I take a project and it's with, let's say, a CRM that I'm not, 10 out of 10 at, I'll still take it. I won't overprice them because, like, oh, it's going to take me longer. Like, I'm not going to overprice them. For me, I'm like, okay, this is more data. Like, at the next time the client comes, boom, way less time, same money, things like that.
All right, bro. Let's kick off. So, Luke, as we just discovered, you're from fucking Cork, which is like literally the weirdest shit ever. Opening up a fucking call and realizing someone's from the same place. So that's a surprise. That I'm fucking surprised by, among many other things that you've done. But how the
Yeah,
fuck does
I
how does
feel
that
like
come about?
I feel like the Cork people or even the Irish people alone always find each other, even just through the online space. When I first like started on Twitter, I'm not. I actually need to add you to it if you're not in it. There's an Irish group chat for online money.
Okay.
There's like There's like 70 guys in here.
I guarantee you, Adam Power is in there.
Like
Connor
pretty
O'Keefe,
sure is
Connor O'Keefe,
There's Connor Sunderland
Connor.
as well, and
I don't know. I don't know,
there's
man.
yeah,
Like,
there's a
so
lot of
I found
people.
those guys as well through this like fucking paradigm. I've been trying to record with Adam for years, like
He'd be great to
actual
record
years.
with. Mm.
I'm planning a trip to Dubai. I have a few. I was meant to go to Dubai last month. I was meant to go to Dubai this month. I was meant to go to Dubai next month. But when I get there, we're going to do like in person. I plan to do everything in
Yeah,
person going
I,
forward. But
so my friend who you probably need to talk to as well. My childhood friend Mike. He's now full time online as well, doing landing pages. He's got like 20K on Twitter. Started at the
okay,
same time
sick.
I did. He texted Adam the other day and was like, because me and Mike are looking to go to Dubai at the end of the year, and he said, hey, would love to meet up. We're from Cork as well. And Adam's like, yeah, for sure. Like it's so funny how there's probably not that many of us, I suppose, from Cork directly that are. I know Connor was living in Cork, Connor Sunderland. He's now in Dubai. I think he's in the same building as Adam.
Yeah.
And I think his business partner was living in Rochestown, where I'm from as well. I
Oh
think
my
he's
god.
your age. He's Connor as well. I'm not sure of his second name, but there's a few of us floating around the place anyway.
Fucking hell, man. And can you imagine how small the podcast community of Irish people are as a result?
Yeah.
I'm literally like one of the only people that are still at it. There's like 3 or 4 podcasts that have reached like 100 episodes. But I honestly think, man,
Wow.
lads, Irish podcasters, there's very little, and I've been able to do shit around it as a result. But that's the kind of, USP I'd say in some
You
regards.
have a
But
great
anyway,
niche. Yeah. You have a great
yeah,
niche where it can kind of go on forever.
yeah, exactly. But for instance, like a podcast like agency can only be built by people who know what a podcast is. Do you get me?
Yeah.
There's that kind of like
Yeah.
nuance whereby like for you, for instance, like you might fucking struggle to find the right fucking camera, but for me, like I'd have like 50 already lined up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So these things has happened. But anyway, how the fuck does someone from Cork become a Zapier fucking wizard? How does this come about?
It comes about from spending too much time online outside of the 9 to 5 job. That's what it is. Trying to find some sort of an escape.
What
Yeah.
did it come from though? Like, what was the actual trigger?
So always, well, I suppose going back kind of early days, like always entrepreneurial, like always. So grew up painting fences, cutting grass. Like I remember my dad promoted it a ton, which is absolutely great because he did the same thing when he was younger. He used to go around the neighborhood, the actual estate, and he would cut grass, get paid, whatever it was back then, £5, £3, whatever, to cut the grass. And then as I got older, maybe 13, 14, I started cutting some relatives' houses, like my grandparents, cousins, and then they would have had neighbors as well. And I even remember like the money was horrendous, but I understood what my dad wanted to do was instill like good kind of like for me to value money and really understand it and not kind of use it the wrong way and stuff like that. So I never grew up like with him giving me anything in terms of that way. It was more teaching me how you got to make your own money. So
Mhm.
I remember he used to drive me like, because obviously I couldn't drive or anything. It is like 15, he used to drive me like 15, 20 minutes for me to go cut grass for 45 minutes and then drive me home. And I get like €5. And I was just like, and now, like when I think now, I'm like, you could have just gave me the €5. Like you probably spent that on fuel, but it was the learning element. So from
Mhm.
that age, I was like, right, need money. I used to always just love money. I was like, I need money. I used to cut grass. I used to bring like sweets to school. So
Sick.
there was no like vending machines or a tuck shop, I suppose what we call them. And I used to get my mom, I used to go to Woodies and we used to buy 24 cans of Coke for €10. And then we used to go to Dunn's and get a multi pack of Twix. And I used to sellotape them together. And I used to sell them
What
for
the
two
fuck?
euro. And
Sick.
I ran up a little bit of money in the first year doing that. And I remember I bought my first pair of Beats headphones after I did that. And I was like, this is sick. I was like, I just bought something that's so expensive out of thin air just from like wheeling and dealing in in the canteen or whatever. Um,
Literally, man.
so it's kind of like it's been ingrained for me since I was pretty young that I always wanted to kind of do my own sort of path. And I messed around with the years. Like I probably looked at drop shipping 2016, 2017. Didn't
Same.
really, I was just so young. I was just like, I tried to build a website, just miserably failed. Didn't even get to running ads. I was just like so horrible at it. And then I I kind of kept moving from there, and I kind of did things backwards. Where obviously now guys who have accumulated a good cash flow business, they're now starting to look at assets. I did it the wrong way around. I've looked at the assets. I've gone so in depth about assets, stocks. Like I've done a little bit of
Crypto.
crypto, not too huge on it. In terms of like I haven't invested a ton in it, but really really big on the stocks and the property side of things. Um, Look so much at it, have a good bit of money in it, but it was just I quickly realized when you have a good cash flowing business, you can just whack so much more money into the market as opposed to trying to save in a 9 to 5.
Man, 100%. Bear in mind, you're in a deficit from the very beginning because it's
Yeah.
always like how much can I save versus how much I can invest.
Yes.
And the biggest thing for me is the fact that input does not equal outcome, and
Huge.
outcome at all, in terms of like what you deliver or what you can get paid. So it can only change. And of course, where we are now between 2022 and 2023 and next year, salaries aren't being adjusted, promotions aren't being given, and the bottom of the pile are getting cut. So even if you want to make more money in your job, like you physically can't at this stage. Like it's actually not even possible. So you're forced to get into the space. I think for you, that's how you got into the more natural online space, because you knew that you had zero costs of fucking being able to run anything, and you could just you continuously move forward and with new shit as a
Yeah.
result.
I felt like when I first saw the agency space online, obviously the normal rabbit hole, Iman Gadji, all his sort of stuff. And I was like, right, what is this? My problem was I went into the online space assuming that everything in the world is a scam. I suppose it's kind of good and bad, but that
Yeah.
means I like refuse to invest in myself, which I've realized like Jesus, paying for mentors is just a cheat code. Like, why would you not do it? Especially if you've got something already built a little bit, because one tweak from a mentor it can blow it up. Because you've already got like a foundation of making money, or like with the business. So I went down that rabbit hole, and I was like, wow, this is actually super smart. That you can just basically spin up a business out of thin air.
From
It's just a
fucking
service.
nothing.
Yeah, it's just a service
Yes.
based business, but it's like minimal software required, not much tech costs. Like we can later on through this, we can talk about some numbers and how much my tech costs. Like it's not that much money, and the money you can make is unreal. And I kind of just went down that way, and I was like, right. I think it was the start of last year. So this time last year, around March, I just told myself and I told my girlfriend, I was like, if I want to make good money, I need to leverage the internet. And that was something I've never put myself out there or anything like that. And I was like, I just know if I want to make good money, this is what I need to do. And I kind of just, yeah, I just kind of fell into it and really started going down the agency rabbit hole. But that was all while I was still in the 9 to 5.
What did you learn from like the 9 to 5 to bring you closer towards building your own agency?
Everything, to be honest. So I know a lot of people love to shit on the 9 to 5s. From my experience, I learned an absolute ton, and I got paid to learn. So I don't have any regret about what I did or finishing college and going into a 9 to 5. The actual learnings from it was I got to know what a CRM is, how that works, and that's an absolutely huge part of my business now, and that's where I help people. Along that, I got to learn data analytics, automated reporting, which is kind of a new, it's very new to be honest. Like I've been in some really large companies and they don't have efficient reporting. So I was like, surely these other marketing agencies don't have it either because they're quite small businesses in comparison. Um, Having that was really good. So I had a very operational kind of analytical mind. So I knew what systems would look at on the back end in terms of finance reporting. So obviously I've done accounting. Um, I knew what was required, but I just didn't know the marketing front end. And that was really the only component I actually needed to learn. So when it came to me actually starting my own business, it was how can I market? And
Mm,
through obviously organic traffic and Twitter has worked really well for me. And then word of mouth on top of that, to be honest, because
mhm.
I don't really have that many competitors in what I do. And thank God, I joke around and I say you can't buy what I know in a course, which is great. Because some
Mhm.
people will buy a course and then they spin up their whole business based on what the course told them. But sure, there's a
Yeah,
thousand other people who bought that course, so you're just competing. So I'm very
100%.
thankful that my learning is fully custom from the jobs that I've had and the time that I've put in, and it's leveraged like tremendously into this online space.
When did you get introduced to Zapier then?
So Zapier, I actually found it on this time last year, but I would have only watched YouTube videos. So my initial research was in my mind when I found these marketing agencies, I thought I was going to do Facebook ads, and don't know why. Super behind the curve. I was reading, I was watching videos that are 2 years old, so I'm just behind. So I'm like, right, this wave is long gone for the small guys. But basically, I found there was a video it was recommended. It was saying like automate your agency, and that there was the Zapier logo. Clicked on it, watched it. I was like, damn. I was like, you can automate without knowing how to like code. I was like, this is crazy. And it was kind of something similar to the tool that I would have used in my finance job. And I was like, okay, this is sick. I can connect Facebook, I can connect Google Sheets, I can connect their CRM. I was like, wow, like this will just move data where I need it. So I found it, watched a couple of videos, and I was like, I like this a lot. And I was like, surely businesses have a need for someone to come in and just clean up this sort of stuff. So didn't take action for ages, just consumed really for like the first half of 2022. So this time last year. And then eventually when I actually found Twitter, I saw there was just a whole cluster of guys who were running businesses and they're all like our age, in their 20s making good money, whether it be a coaching program or actually an agency, and all of them are going to need some form of automation. So I didn't know Zapier that well, but I labeled myself as Zapier Wizard. Like I was just like, I know how to learn the tool. Surely I know it better than most people. So what
Yeah.
I did was I just put that as like Luke Zapier Wiz. So like straight away in my actual name, people will know it's automation. And Zapier is, kind of like a buzzword. Like most agencies would use it. So I was like, right, this is perfect. Now I'll just go buy like a $20 course on Zapier, which I did. And it showed me just the basic fundamentals. Like it didn't tell me about any business design, process design, like system thinking, which I already had from my 9 to 5, which is great. But I essentially was like, right, I just need to learn the tool at like a basic fundamental level. And then as I build my own processes and stuff like that, I'll be able to just elaborate from there. So the whole actual process of coming up with things for marketing agencies took a
Mhm.
little while, but I slipped into it quite nicely. So I created a simple Excel spreadsheet and I documented all the different tech that's possible for people to use who run agencies. So an example would be I would create a spreadsheet and I would put a column header for form submissions. And I would say type form, Jot form, Google Forms, and I would just list all of the common tech that would have been used. I would do the same then for a CRM, Salesforce, HubSpot, Close, all this sort of stuff. And then in my spare time outside of my 9 to 5, I would then create automations using those tech stacks. Because if I ended up getting on a call with someone, they go, hey, I use HubSpot. Have you used that? I'm not going to go tell them, no, I haven't used HubSpot. Like I should go learn
S-
HubSpot.
Say yes to
Yeah,
everything.
literally. So that's how I went around like actually building some flows. And it's funny, like I've created like this terminology for a certain automation, and I've seen all the new automation guys popping up on Twitter and they're copying exactly the terminology that I'd like created back like six
Man,
months ago.
how did you learn the nuances of some of the automations that you do? So I see some of them have like 7 or 8 workflows, but how
Yeah.
did you know it goes that detailed?
I think it's I think it's just like completely from my mind, which is weird to say, I suppose. Like I haven't everything that I'm doing here is like straight out of my head, but it's just what made sense. So like I basically documented the steps that, and I used the market, right, to get my data, and I'm a huge fan of that. So whether you're launching a new offer or looking for intel on you building a new process, is like go directly to the market and talk to the market. So what I mean by that is I would get on calls with business owners and I would sit there with them, someone who's running a marketing agency doing 20,000, 30,000 a month, and I'd say, okay, I want to give you a hand here. And in the beginning, I did stuff for free to just get my name out there. I was like, sit with me right now. Take me through the exact process on how you onboard a customer or a new client. So they go, okay, I need to first send them, populate the contract. I need to put in all the variables, onboarding fee, edit the contract, send it to them. Then I usually send them a welcome email. Then I usually give them the onboarding form. Then I need to go update my CRM. Then I need to make a Slack channel. And it goes on and on and on. And I did that enough times with people where I was like, okay, these are pretty much all the things you need to do to just get someone onboarded. So like the last part of that would be go into the project management tool and assign tasks to all the various different team members. So I
Yeah.
was like, I'm sure I can just create an automation that will just do all of this for you. So I that's how I actually come up with a lot of the flows. I would just take for some of the ones that are more like repetitive, where I
Yeah.
would just take what did you do step by step, and then I will go create an automation based on that. The other side of it, which is sales systems, it's really just knowing the business model to a very good level, both agencies and kind of consulting slash coaching businesses, understanding where are leads coming from, where is there a potential for the lead to fall through the crack, and how can we recoup that with automation or even a notification to a setter to go ring that lead. That's a huge thing that people don't put any emphasis on, which is where I can come in and pretty much generate a really big ROI by doing that.
How much time do you think it saved?
Which for a specific automation or for
Yeah, in general, let's say so if you were working with a marketing agency, if you're doing onboarding, maybe some
yeah,
client information and whatnot.
yeah. So like a basic. So I had a client who was taking about 63 minutes to onboard a client. And if you're doing enough volume, you can that can take quite a while. I got it down to 60 seconds. So you want to value your own time as an owner. And I feel like a lot of these guys who are at that 30 to 50K a month, they still take sales calls, and they still do a little bit of the onboarding. So the problem with that is if you're making, let's say you're making 35 a month, right? You divide that by 4.33, and then you want to divide that by, let's say, 40 hours a week. Okay. That means their hourly time rate to the business is $200 an hour. So it's like
Mm,
if you do that, if you let's say you onboard 2 people a week, whatever it is, like you're burning a lot of money
yeah.
just on it's that's not a high ROI activity like at all. Like,
Mhm.
would you not rather to have an extra 10 hours a month that you can go pull a bigger lever, do more marketing, network, maybe, go start up a new channel to do outreach, something like that. Something like you could build a whole new outreach system in fucking 10 hours. And like that could
Yeah.
bring you extra 100K in a year instead of you spending, 2 hours a week onboarding clients. It can just be done automatically.
100%, man, and that's insane the amount of progress you're able to make with just an individual client, you know. And like, there's so much things going off my brain at the moment now in terms of like how that could be used for my business or even
Yeah.
looking at other businesses, you know. When you started to outreach to clients, how did you go about that process when you had no social proof or no
Yeah.
testimonials?
So it's really interesting. I basically, so I've already, so immediately, if you're starting on Twitter, right, you need to get your profile sorted. So I got a pin thread, just proved that I was competent at what I was actually saying, and I understood what I was talking about. So I'm not, I'm not. People actually know I can do it. I tweet about it. Then get a nice pin thread, nice banner, nice header, bio, and I would literally just tell them, hey, let me come in for free. I just want to help you automate some stuff. And I spent a lot of time networking with people, just getting on calls and just sitting there for 60 minutes, talking to them, be like, hey, how can I help you? Show me, share your screen there. And it was more of a networking call. So like actually end up being friends with them. But on the side, there was actually the motive for me to really get on the call was to see inside their business. And I was like, this data is just so useful for me. So I would get on a call with them. I'd ask them where they at, what's the revenue, how many team members do you have, VAs, do you have this? Because a lot of the time they get VAs to do manual work that can just be automated quite easily.
Automated, yeah.
So I would have just helped people that way. And with the way the Twitter market or money Twitter, whatever we want to call it, it's quite small, but there is a lot of us. So anyone who I spoke to had friends that were like, hey, can you and that's like how I would have got my first paying client was like, hey, my friend needs some stuff. How much for this? And I was like, fuck. I was like, here we go. Like, this is just the start of it now.
Fuck, man. How did you price your service when you didn't know what you were
Awful in the beginning. Awful. So I did. And like, I'm still working through that. Like, as time goes on, it's gone up a ton, but like, I'm still working on it. So in the beginning, what I did was I created all of the common automations that I felt like an agency owner would have liked. And I literally made a menu. Like a restaurant menu.
Fuck. Yeah. I got sent one of those by a copywriter the other day,
Bro.
and it was 2 pages long, and
Oh no.
I knew the guy, and I was like, yeah, I'll have a look, because like there's some stuff I need, my website needs to be rewrote or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck? Like, I feel like I'm in fucking Nando's, and I'm like looking over the menu in Nando's, not having a clue what to
Yeah.
do. It just decision paralysis, like
Yeah.
whatever. Just that's
Too
what
much
what avoid.
choice is an issue. So I did that in the beginning. I priced them pretty low. So to give context, in my 9 to 5, doing about 30K a year euro, and any bit of money earned outside of it, I looked at it as pure profit, pure savings, blah blah blah. So I was like, geez, if I can just make an extra €500 a month, like that was initially, I knew I could turn it into a business, but I was like, I didn't think it would move this quickly. And I didn't think there was this money up for grabs at the beginning. So I was just like, right, let's make the little menu. I was kind of valuing it off my time, which is stupid, obviously just at a higher rate than the 9 to 5 was paying me. So I think like the first one I did, I think I charged them like 300, and it was to do like kind of a contract automation. And like, man, like it was not worth it on my end, but it was the fact that I was still so early at it. It was using a new tool that I hadn't used in terms of a contract software. It was an absolute bitch to figure out. And I think I spent like 6 hours on it or something like that. But it did his onboarding, and I was like, fuck it. I was like, first paying client. I was like, paid to learn again. And I still look at it that way. If there's something where I take a project and it's with, let's say, a CRM that I'm not, 10 out of 10 at, I'll still take it. I won't overprice them because, like, oh, it's going to take me longer. Like, I'm not going to overprice them. For me, I'm like, okay, this is more data. Like, at the next time the client comes, boom, way less time, same money, things like that.
Man, I had the exact same conundrum yesterday. There was a client asked me to do something particular, and kind of had a little bit of experience with it. Didn't really know what I was doing, but I said initially said no, we probably would need to adjust pricing, so whatever. And he was like, no, like that's not within like our remit at the moment. And I was like, okay, grand, maybe one day. And I was in the shower, and I was like, fuck, I think I know how I could do this in a certain way. And I just went back to him, and I was like, fuck it, we'll just do it as is. I was like, forget about it, whatever. And then I think it took us like maybe like 15 minutes, just like actually sit and think, being like, okay, this is how we do it, this is how we make it look cool, this is how we do it as like an MVP and make it look kind of pretty. And then we said, look, let's go and do it. And that like kind of capital you're building in your own brain, just like the knowledge capital, is just so fucking valuable, because it's not about making the money today, it's about building the tools and building the processes and building the systems so that in the future you can be that 50k agency,
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where a lot of people miss the boat. So in the beginning, I didn't care that much on the amount of money that I was making. I cared more about the relationships that I was building, and I'm still focused that way massively. And it's been unbelievable for me, it's been so good how I've been able to go from pretty much nobody knowing who I am to now like basically the top, whatever you want to call it, money Twitter's a little weird space, but like bigger
Yeah.
accounts now vouching for me under different tweets. And like right now I'm at a point where it's like I'm just circling between all the really high level guys in there and I'm just helping all of them, which is unreal.
Fucking hell, man, that's awesome, man. Well done to you, man. Honestly, God, like, firstly,
Appreciate it.
that's insane. What's the kind of the growth of your business been like in terms of like, if you can speak even revenue figures, like obviously your
Yeah.
first year, but your
Yeah.
thoughts, in general.
Yeah, so I'm like 6 months. What am I now? Hang on. So if I start, let's say I started on Twitter, which is like wasn't even a business. I started in August. What's that to now? Is that 8 months? Maybe a little bit more.
Uh,
I don't know.
8 months, yeah.
Yeah, 8 9 months. So started with nothing. Um, let's say signed the first client for 300. For context, last month I did 20 grand in a month.
What?
Yeah,
Fuck, man. And how much
yeah.
time does that take you? Because like you're
So to be
building
honest,
automation flows.
the actual workflows aren't too bad. It's I feel like I spend, yeah, I suppose it does take a little bit of time. All right, it's not horrendous, but the the other side of it is like you have to market yourself, right? So like there's a lot of hats that you wear as a business owner. So if we're
Of
looking at,
course, yeah.
let's say, time invested on the workflows, well, like 10 hours a week, maybe something like that. A couple of other hours then is like communication, like actually
Yeah,
talking to them, strategizing, things like that. That obviously takes time. The actual execution of a flow doesn't take that long. You just need to map it first.
yeah.
And the good thing is with a lot of these clients is I am doing very similar things for them, which is great.
And are
Um,
you on your own?
yeah, so I've got a guy recently now, but he's quite entrepreneurial, so I don't think he's going to stay under me forever. But that
That's
was one
good.
of,
That's good in one way, though. That's good in one
yeah,
way. Like, my graphic designer is the same. Like, he wants to build a graphic design agency,
yeah,
and I'm like, yeah, I'll help you. Like, I'm
yeah,
figuring things out. Like, I'll help you, and then you can go and do it someday.
exactly. My problem, and I know I talk about automation and delegating work and scaling. My issue is the stuff that I do, it is absolutely impossible to create some sort of an SOP guide that you can follow because there is too much nuance in the processes where I would literally need a client to have the exact same CRM, the exact same, like, let's say, naming conventions, and the exact same point at which an automation needs to be used inside of a process. And I've made, for every client that I do, I build a library of video SOPs on how everything's built, how you can edit them, how you can change things. But I was hoping that I could just, next time I sign a client, just give that library to, let's say, my employee. But it just doesn't work like that. Every client has their own way of running things, and you need to be able to understand that. So my biggest bottleneck is finding good talent, and I want someone who knows both automation and analytics like I do, which is quite rare. I would have to pull someone out of a 9 to 5, which this guy's in a 9 to 5 that I've got, and he knows analytics and he knows the no code stuff that I do. So like he's perfect employee, but he's entrepreneurial. So
Yeah, and he's like a freelance at the moment, so you can. It's only
yeah,
like a bit of cash. You know what I mean? It's not like you're
yeah,
actually paying someone. That's the difference. You
exactly.
know what I mean?
So I think the next step is either becoming a fractional CTO, COO, and just running it that way, getting a rev share on the companies and scaling that way. And it's just me, keep it lean. I don't think I have a desire to build out 20 team members. I just don't think I want the whole reason I've gotten into this, and I love business and stuff like that, but it is to live and design a certain life that I want to live, which is just have time, location, be able to be free, have your own hours, stuff like that. And I feel like, and how I've seen inside of these agencies is people come in, they get 20, 30 team members and they are swamped. Like they can't
Yeah,
move. And even with delegating, creating SOPs, automating, there's still going to be work that's there for you. You're not going to like exit. I love people, some people talk about on Twitter, oh, exit your agency. Like, yeah, you can sell it, like if you build it properly, but the actual exiting it and sitting on a beach with a cocktail, that's not, your business will start going downhill if you do that. So
of course.
if you want to run lean, and I've seen a few guys do it, take a rev share, take 5 clients, and you'll make good money. And it can be you and maybe 2 subcontractors. And I think that's the way I want to run it.
Yeah, exactly, man. And as you scale up, like it just gets more and more complicated a lot of times. And even if you do have like automation in your business, that doesn't mean that you're gonna have more employees on your books, more shit to pay for. There's just more nuance, you know. And of course, there's a time and a place for that. But you don't need, like, if you're making 30K a month, like why the fuck would you ever need any more? Like what
Yeah,
else do you need? Like, you get me? Of course, you can do more shit with that money than, as we discussed, like in terms of assets, building it out. But that's of course like the fundamentals.
yeah.
Let's get into some of the details on actually how you build this out. So you start at the very beginning in terms of marketing. So the challenge I have with this, from my perspective, is, as you mentioned, it's very nuanced.
Mhm.
So sometimes the variables are different, the naming convention are very different. But how are you designing websites to capture leads, and how are you following
Yeah,
that process to message them
yeah. So is this specifically for my business or for client businesses?
for clients?
Okay. So usually
What
how clients work.
commonalities you have?
Yeah. So essentially how most B2B marketing agencies or just B2B businesses work is, right, you've two forms of traffic. So you've outbound and inbound. Now, what a lot of these guys who I talk to who do well is they have a social media presence, meaning that they create organic traffic, whether it's tweeting, writing tweets, posting stuff on LinkedIn. They'll accumulate people who come to them for their business. So they'll come to them through the link in the bio, or they'll DM them, or whatever it may be. Then these guys also run automations. They might run LinkedIn automations that outreach to people, message them, might do cold email that outreach to people, and then some of them will run paid advertising. So that's all outbound marketing. Now, all of that, there's a few different forms of how you would capture a lead. A lead can come to your website, and some of them have a book a call link, or maybe they fill in an application. Depending on the variables that they filled in the application, it's like a decision tree where it'll go, okay, if they're, let's say you're running a Facebook ad agency and you only work with clients who want to spend a minimum $5,000 a month on ads, we can put inside of this form, okay, if how much do you have to spend on ads per month? And if they submit more than 5K, they will start going towards the decision tree of being able to book a call at the end of the application. If not, it might just say at the end of it, hey, sorry, um, super busy at the moment, blah blah blah. We'll give you a message in 48 hours. And what they can do is maybe sell them maybe their down sell offer, their lower ticket service, things like that. So from that actual point where someone fills that in and submits it, in Zapier, you can capture the submission automatically. So once the submission is done through, let's say, a tool called Typeform that you can embed on your website, Zapier will pick up the response and then push it to your actual CRM. So that person will go in as a lead into your CRM, whether you use Close.io, HubSpot, Salesforce. Then that's, let's say, someone who just came to your website. For the people who run advertising, you usually wouldn't drive them to your website. You would drive them to what's called a landing page. And obviously with a landing page, there's kind of it's one page. You can't click around and click other buttons to get off it. And you have one goal in mind to get them to click something, which is just the call to action, whether it be they fill in a form or they consume a lead magnet, like an extra document. Oh, 49-page document showing you how we did A to Z process. Whatever your client would have liked, those would be like opt-ins. So and getting those opt-ins, you can use something like ClickFunnels, or you could build a landing page and embed a form submission on like ConvertKit, MailChimp, ActiveCampaign. They give you you can create a form inside of those tools, and they will give you an embed code that you can copy and put it onto your landing page. So when people submit that, in return, they'll get an automated email with the document, and then they're now going to be put into a sequence. And the goal of a sequence then is to warm them up, get them more sure of you, show them more social proof about your offer, nail pain points, like absolutely nail their pain points. It's like you need to know your ideal customer inside out. What are they doing wrong? Where are they feeling hurt? And how can you provide the solution in the best way possible to get them on a call with you? So through those automated emails, and we can talk about how I do it for coaching businesses, I've helped them on that.
Yeah.
Where it'll go through a 5-6 step email sequence, and at the end it will be like, hey, book a call with us. And like you can get a lot of people, and by the time they come to that call, they're pretty much already sold on your service.
the relationship, man, between inbound and versus outbound is crazy. Like
Yeah,
some outbound people I've had laugh at me. I've had some people try to
yeah,
insult me. Bear in mind, some guy actually tried to insult how I looked at one stage. I'll tell you that another time. But inbound is just completely different. If someone messages me, or if it's like a referral, like
yeah,
it's already done. You know what I mean?
yeah.
At that point, what type of workflow emails are you doing to people to warm them up? Are you like, what's the contents of those emails?
Yeah. So with, let's say, an example for someone who came through the website, and then once they book, I usually have people, you can redirect the URL that they're sitting on, so it brings them to, let's say, a thank you page. But on the thank you page, I get people, business owners, to record like a video, and we put that on the landing page where it's like, success, thank you for booking the call, please watch this video before you call. And it's like a 3-minute video, basically setting expectations. Need to be in a quiet room, they need to be doing this, basically just ensuring that they're showing up in the best way possible. Like, you don't want someone showing up to a meeting and they're on the fucking bus or whatever it is, you know? And we want to make sure the decision maker is actually on the call as well. So we would say in the video kind of sales letter that's on the thank you page, make sure that you're the decision maker, or bring the decision maker with you. Like, just a few checks that we need. Now from there, so let's say they booked through Calendly, which is, for anyone who doesn't know, it's just an appointment scheduling tool. Calendly can have a pre-series like workflow. Usually what we do is we give them a confirmation email automatically. I think Calendly does that. Then 24 hours before the call, we remind them, but we give them a case study. So, and how I like to get people to do case studies is do a Loom video, like a Loom video, have the case study, have your face, talk, because you can start building the parasocial relationship before they even get on the call with you. Because so they'll know, what's he look like? What's he sound like? He seems genuine. And like, they know you're a real person. Whereas a lot of people, you're just seeing and reading things. Whereas if you can
Yeah.
see someone talk and actually look at them before you even get in the call with them, by the time you're going to get on the call, they're going to be like, oh yeah, I feel like I know this guy. So
Mhm.
it's usually a 24-hour, and it's a video going over, super quick video, just a case study of someone they helped in, let's say, their niche. And then after that, then it's like a 3-hour reminder. Hey, just general reminder, blah, blah, blah. And then 1 hour and then 15 minutes. And that's it.
And have you ever tested what it's like with that and without it?
Yeah. So I think, I don't have the numbers now, but I have it on Twitter. I helped an agency, it's like 70 something percent show up rate to like 90 something. So like, it's huge. Like, I helped an agency recently doing, I think it was 100K a month. I added an SMS text for in one of those flows, and
Yeah.
it's going to add an extra 100K a year to the business,
How?
just
Just
from
because they.
just from getting the show up rate better. So based on their current show up rate, based on their close rate, from increasing the show up rate from X to Y, they should make, based off their current close rate, an extra 100K a year from this automation.
Oh my god, man! And
Yeah.
it's a small nuance is what you're
Yes.
essentially doing, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But how the fuck are you figuring out these nuances though? Did you just like iteratively work on it and say, okay, well, Calendary, I did 2 steps, now I've done 4 steps.
Yeah, there's a lot of data tracking, and like, I'm a big fan of making data-driven decisions. So like, split testing is a huge thing in this game, where people obviously are marketing. If you have a website or a landing page that you run for ads, you would usually make 2 of them, and then you would change some sort of a variable on the actual page. So whether this be the color scheme, how you wrote the call to action button, did you say book a call or book your call? You know, there's a few things that you can change on these, on these flows, and then just run the data against each other over a long enough time horizon and a big enough sample size. Um, from what I've seen working, like, obviously I'm still only a few months at this. It's usually the one where it's 24 hours before, 6, 3 hours, and then 15 minutes works a treat. Like, in the nature of some people's businesses, especially if you're running a lot of outbound traffic, you're just going to get a certain amount of no-shows, and that's just the way it is. Usually if someone's inbound, they really won't no-show you because they came to you. But yeah.
Happens, man. Even on my podcast, like I've noticed when I stop sending people prep information,
Mm-hmm.
there was actually more no shows or like last
Yeah.
minute cancellations. Whereas if
Mm-hmm.
you contact them a week beforehand, like that's just like, and
Yep.
that's something small. Like, I'm not looking to
Yep.
for them to buy something off me. You know, that's
Yep.
just like it's just, I guess it's more time on screen, more
Yeah.
relevancy, and you're able to get that better connection. As you move through the funnel, I guess, and you move into the next part about like your actual onboarding. So how do you really capture information? Because something that thought was quite interesting from your tweets is that, you know, you say you populate loads of tasks when things are finished,
Yeah,
but how are they consistent? Because like for me, when I
yeah,
try to think about that, it's like, well, the tasks would be different in some regards. So how do you work through that kind of
yeah.
workflow?
So for onboarding specifically, there's usually just what you would need to do as a business owner is you'll need to update your CRM. You'll need to give them some sort of a contract. You need to give them some sort of a welcome email that gives them a link to maybe an onboarding form so you can capture data, and then maybe a link to a kickoff call. So from there, you want to build obviously a communication channel. Most people use Slack, and then you want to make an assigned task for your team. Now, for the actual straightforward, the onboarding, what I get people to do is whether it's your closer or your sales guy, whoever takes the actual deal and closes it on the call, I get them to fill out what I call an activation form. Now, inside of this, we put in the client details, whether it's the first name, their email, the business name. Then inside of there, I put like what contract type are we going to be clicking? Because some businesses have different offers. So I have a hooked where they can select, okay, this is our lower ticket paid ads offer or whatever this may be. From there, when they select that option, they then punch in the actual variables of the contract. Are we taking an onboarding fee? Is it a revenue share? Whatever the details is of the actual contract. From there, you can then hit submit. It will update CRM, will populate the correct contract, send it to the client's email, send them the welcome email with the link to the onboarding form and the kickoff call, and then it will start generating the tasks in the project management tool. Now, dependent on the offer, we can have that as a variable in relation to the project management tool. So if it's the lower tier paid ads offer, we know it's these 10 tasks, and we know it needs to get assigned to this person as opposed to the person who works on the higher ticket offer.
Yeah.
So I can create these kind of variables in place where it's like dependent on what was chosen, it will then create a certain task or a certain series of tasks. So you can be really custom with it. Then another step of it is, I'm not sure how familiar you are with cold email, but how cold email works is you need to scrape like your ideal prospects, and dependent on who your ideal prospect is, they're going to sit in a database online that you can pay for. And for some people who run cold email, they will take on clients and they need to go scrape the client's ideal customer. So what I used to do for that person was they'd fill in another form and it'd be like, what database are we going to scrape them from? What tech are we going to use? And basically once they hit submit, the tasks will get populated, but they'll be like variables. So it'll be like buy 10 Google domains as opposed to Outlook, or like buy
Yeah.
scrape from store leads, which is a database, instead of Apollo. So there's like these little variables that you can put, and like depending on the input, you can just change the output.
Man, this is blowing my mind. There's literally there's so much in this, man. Holy shit! I'm gonna have to go back over like a million times. Question for you on this is like, how do you create those flows in Zapier, however you fucking pronounce it? Like, how
Yeah,
did you construct those nuances? Because when I fuck with Zapier, man, like some of it keep accusing the shit out of me.
like yeah, it can be quite overwhelming in the beginning. I think having a fundamental understanding of data before coming into this has worked a ton for me. So like I can get fancy with it just because I know how data communicates. So for an example of the onboarding one that I just spoke about, where you submit a activation form and it then updates the CRM, how it actually updates the CRM is it looks up the email. So when we put in that form, we wrote in the client's email. When we hit submit, inside of the Zapier workflow, the trigger for everything is just Google form submission. The next step is update the CRM. How we actually update the CRM is we used it based off the email field inside of the form. So we know this guy's email is already in our CRM because we've been talking to them. So it's going to do a lookup and it's going to go find this email in the CRM for me and then update their current status from second call booked to now closed one. So you have to use certain fields that can look up to other pieces, other software that can then kind of like move forward. Having that understanding has been huge for me, because if I find something where a tool doesn't have an integration that I can't use or it doesn't have a certain trigger, I'll find a workaround. Like I'll just build a workaround. Like I'll just use it. I'll connect it to Google Sheets and I'll build a formula. And then I'll have, when that formula gets populated, it will then trigger something else. I'll work a way around it. So I've created some stuff that gets fairly complex.
Yeah.
But most of the time it can be relatively straightforward as long as you have the understanding of data.
Have you ever had any shit shows with like sending the wrong information, like it's signaling the wrong way for? Because like
Yeah.
for instance, I'll give you an example. Like if you were, for instance, we talked about email beforehand. If
Mhm.
someone clicked on an email or clicked on a link on an email and then didn't book a call,
Mhm.
and then you sent them this email, this fucking message, being like, "Oh, saw you're interested. Here's a fucking free guide," but they went onto your Twitter and dropped you a message, and now you've like
Gotcha.
fucked the relationship because like they've
Gotcha.
already messaged you, and then you're sending them all this like random shit.
I get you. So like accidentally triggered a sequence for something else.
That's my
That's
biggest fear with the whole thing because I have this stuff internally, just purely internally, but not necessarily externally. Even when I was using Lemlist, man, like I had fucking like it came at it like a clash with my brain a small way
yeah,
because I was like, I don't want to send an email to someone who could potentially be on my podcast in a few years or whatever. Like there was all this kind of like
yeah.
decisions I was making in my head, you know.
I think so. Like quality control is obviously something that has to be factored, and that's something that I would have learned in the 9 to 5s. So like version control, quality control, all that sort of stuff comes into play here. Um, I run, so a great example of this. So to first answer your question, no, I haven't fucked anything up as of yet. Um, so that's been fine. And if I have, it's something that's super small and it's usually internal where it's like a task. When I'm dealing with something that's client facing, whether it be a CRM automation or a client receiving an automated email or automated text, I'm really, really careful on how that actually goes out. So I usually put my own data in for all of the flows. So I sign up for the lead magnet. I opt in through their website with my own personal information. And when I run all of my tests, it's done on my own information. So that means when I do an SMS, I'm actually going to go get it on my iPhone. So I know it's working.
Mhm.
I do it that way. I think that's the safest way because yeah, my worst fear would be stuff triggering. Let's say I'm asleep because I'm in the UK and most of my clients are in America, a couple hours behind me. Imagine I'm asleep and then I wake up to a shitstorm of messages. Luke, there's been 6,000 emails sent to the wrong people. I'm gonna be like, oh Jesus.
Yeah, it's like an email. It's like, hey, name. I want to talk to
Yeah,
you about subject shit like that. You know what I mean?
exactly. Yeah,
Man, that's fucking funny. You write a lot about as well about fulfillment, and man, I've
yeah,
I've learned so much stuff. So my actually best mate, who you probably know, actually, a guy called Tom Tracy. Listen, what you're saying?
yeah. I know. I've heard of his name. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Does Tom know that you're from fucking Cork? But he sent me your shit like
Oh.
about 3 months. That's why I reached out to you, man. He sent me your
Oh,
stuff,
right.
being like, he texted me being like, oh, like obviously the biggest challenge for you getting to like 15 or 20K a month is like operations. And I was like, yeah, definitely. And then he was like, oh, this dude on Twitter just like describes how to do it. That's literally how I met you initially. But you write a lot about fulfillment and especially things like having like a digital fucking brain of your business.
Yeah.
Can you talk me through that process?
Yeah. So essentially, what a digital brain is I use a tool called Lucid Chart. Now, in simple
Yeah.
terms, what Lucid Chart is essentially it's a massive flow chart that you can build and link things together, and it's quite common in just business processes, and it's what a lot of corporate businesses would use when they design a process and kind of get it approved by the board or higher ups, whatever it may be. You would design the system, show how it works, and then from there, so it's mapped on paper. Essentially it's just mapped on paper, and from there you would actually go build it. Now, inside of Lucid Chart, it's a great tool. I've come up with like, and I think I didn't invent this terminology of digital brain. I think I saw it online. But what it is essentially every single possible operation inside of your business is on one page, and it's huge. And the good thing with Lucid Chart is you can zoom in, you can zoom out, blah blah blah. So like, you don't have to make it tiny. Make it as big as you want. Now, how you would start with building something like this is looking at your customer journey and mapping it through all of the steps that happen in between, from the moment of the client finding you, going all the way to actually getting on a call with you, onboarding them, all of the steps, starting the fulfillment, getting up to scratch on the fulfillment, and then the recurring fulfillment as well. And then even if when they churn, you have an offboarding program as well. So like the full A to Z on what happens. Now, the reason you do this is when you scale out and bring on more team members, it's very easy for them to come into this digital brain and actually understand what happens inside of your business. A lot of the time, if you're running, let's say you're running a massive company, it's fair enough. Like you can get someone and they do one specific task and that's their job. Just sure, there's people in 9 to 5s, they don't even know what their business does. They don't even know what the company does. And they're just sitting there in Excel, they do 2 reports and they talk to this manager weekly on this. Whereas if you've let's say 10 employees, 5 employees, 15 employees, usually your employees will do more than what someone would into a bigger company. And that's why people like taking jobs at startups, because you get loads of responsibility, right? So
Yeah.
when you pull these people in, they're going to actually fundamentally need to understand how your business operates at a full level. And you are going to waste a ton of time explaining it to them for them just to forget. So if you build a digital brain, they will actually see how it works. Now, there's another level to it where what you do is you build SOPs, right? Standard operating procedures, step-by-step guides on how you actually do the individual processes, and you link them on the digital brain. So if your employee was like, okay, I forget how we onboard someone, right? They can go click on the onboarding section and there will be a Loom video tutorial breaking down all the intricacies of the onboarding process. So it'll be like, here's the link that we use that we send on the form. Here's the template for the welcome email that gets sent. That gets sent through the Zapier workflow here. Here's a video on that. It's just so much information, but you can pinpoint it. So it's not like you go to a library and you have to scroll the library. You can look at the brain as like an eagle's eyes view, and then zoom in and be like, okay, what usually happens with offboarding? We haven't offboarded someone in ages. How does that work? You zoom in into Lucidchart, you see the onboarding section, you can see the steps being mapped out, and then there's a Loom video linked. Be like, hey, let me actually just watch the video. And then the video breaks it all down. So that's the goal of it. Nobody does this stuff, but I feel like it's so essential. And it takes a while to build, like I understand that, but
Yeah.
the ROI on it is massive.
The only time I started to do that, which wasn't the full end of the business, it was more the outbound process, was you might know Propane Fitness, Yusuf from Propane.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, Yusuf was on my podcast when my good mates, Colin as well, introduced me to him. And he showed his outbound process whereby someone clicks on a lead magnet fucking tool, then they send them like a fucking workout like tutorial, and it
yeah,
goes through that process. And he helps coaches go from like 1K a month to like 5K a month, 8K a month. So he's training PT coaches basically. And I remember seeing that process and being like, what the fuck? It's so clear, and doing that for myself just for the outbound part, but not the fulfillment part.
yeah.
And I think that's where like the gap is at, because like
Yeah.
you probably like, do you find many people that their fulfillment is quite custom, it's bespoke a lot of the time?
Yeah, I do. And that's one thing that I struggle with on pricing. So
Yeah.
for me, how I usually started twisting it. So in the beginning, I helped people with fulfillment because that's usually where the most manual work is. There is a lot of manual work on the sales side and like recovering a lot of stuff there. But if you don't have a good system for fulfillment, like what's the point of scaling the front end in terms of the marketing if you can't actually handle it on the
Exactly.
back end? So
Exactly. Can't bring in more clients if you don't have
yeah.
no time, you know?
So originally what I started doing recently is I sell people on the actual sales system side first. So I sell them on, hey, let me clean up your existing sales process. Let me redesign that, re-engineer that. Then, so after they have already paid me, I say, then I will look at your fulfillment, because it is extremely difficult for me to give a quote on a job where I actually can't see their back end. And the back end can go on forever. Like some people's, like if they have a big enough company, like there's going to be so much going on, and their expectation might be I can just automate everything, when in reality that's just not the case. So
Mhm.
it's very difficult for me to pitch a quote unless we drag through like 4 or 5 calls and they have to share their screen, and that's such a time sink for me, which I'm not, I'm not prepared to do. I'm at a point where I just can't do it. So I sell them on the front end of like sales systems, and then I kind of like upsell the back end of like the actual fulfillment, how that works for most people. And really, like if you want to actually have a good operation for your fulfillment, first of all, I tell you, automation is not going to save your life. Like good talent will. So finding good talent and then being able to work with the talent in terms of giving them the resources that they need to excel, because they'll be the ones that will figure out how to improve a process because they are using the process day in and day out. They will spot the bottlenecks. Then obviously like the automation can come in. So when I actually help people, I don't really talk with the CEO for the fulfillment. Like, yeah, a brief overview. I go straight to the staff. I go straight to the guy who's sitting there doing the process 16 times over per day. I'll be like, okay, step by step, what do you do? And I run through it that way. And from obviously my knowledge of data and systems, I can find shortcuts on the automation that will take something that say usually takes them an hour and a half. We can bring it down to less than an hour, whatever it may be. That's just from using like formulas, lookups. Maybe they're manually putting data here, then they need to go find data from this database, and then they need to go put it to a different software. Where originally I could do something where like, hey, how about you fill in this form? Once you submit the form, it will go to that tool, that will look up against that tool, find the data you need there, and then input it automatically over there. And then they're like, oh shit, wow, like didn't even know that could happen. So like the streamlining fulfillment, if I could give advice for anyone, it's understand how to build great SOPs, and then it's finding good talent and don't cheap out on it, because they're the ones that will actually do all the heavy lifting there. And then obviously invest in someone like me, I suppose, where I can come in and just give them more time to actually work on new processes.
How do you focus on the QA part of things? So like with fulfillment,
Yeah.
what I've often found is that like there's always like a tit for tat going back and forth. Like this is just, this is adjust. How does automation even work in? How does that come a part of that process?
Like it can be difficult with like I make something and then someone's like, hey, can we change it? Or like, hey, can we update this? Stuff like that.
That's good though. You have more
Yeah,
fucking management fees.
that's true. And like you can, with the actual getting it set up, I run through the process with them. I make a systems design on Lucidchart, and then what happens is I will basically, because you have to be quite smart on when like something is live and moving, and then I'm going to be creating an automation that impacts that, where it's like if I turn this thing on for like a split second, there's going to be stuff running through here. So the actual timing of it, the good thing is I'm on different hours to them, so I'll usually turn something on when they're asleep and like stuff's not really happening. But the actual like kind of like version control and stuff like that, it's really, I go through, I make a rough draft, and then I test it on my end. I put in all of like my data in there, and then you can do like in Zapier, you can make stuff offline that you've probably seen, where like you just get some test data and you can just build it and you can manually test every single trigger. So no live data is actually running through this thing. So I do that, make sure it's working, and then I run obviously the business owner through the process, being like, hey, we good to switch this on. And then once it's switched on, we let the data flow. And then if there's anything, usually after something's flowing, they then get, because they start seeing it work and they're like, oh shit, this is actually working. Then their brain actually kicks in. They're like, fuck, what else can we do? So that's when I start upselling like a ton, because they're now like, oh shit, this stuff actually works. What else can we automate here? Because this is now saving me a ton of time.
100%, man. And for your perspective, then, like, how do you package everything? Like, how are you packaging those upsells?
Yeah, so the good thing about what I do, I suppose, is like it can be fully custom. Like I will build you what you need exactly, as long as obviously it's worth it for me in terms of price and whatnot. So how I usually price right now is I sell them on a full CRM build out along with the onboard automation. So an example of what this looks like is like either you have an existing CRM, or what I'm doing with a client now is I'm working with an agency doing like 300K a month, and I'm migrating their CRM from one system to another. So I'm building it from scratch, and then I'm actually building it fully, connect everything, and at the very end, I'm going to download all the data on the old system and put it into the new one. So
Why do you need to build it from scratch? Like,
So we're
why
actually
is that?
swapping software. So I recommended a new CRM that they should use. So we're
Okay.
changing the actual software. So I price it where it's like for the upsells, it really just ranges on what they need. So some people who are at that higher level of revenue numbers and just have more data, they're going to need reporting. And most businesses don't have an efficient reporting process.
Yeah.
So if I can come in and basically I can tell them what will be on the dashboard and kind of make just a simple what it would look like. So let's like draw something out, whether it be on Lucid chart. I can be like, hey, you're going to have metrics on all of this, and you're going to be able to slice and dice it by this. So an example for someone listening would be if you're looking at your sales forecasting figures or just your sales figures in general, you'd be able to see, okay, how much was created in our pipeline within the last 14 days. And it's like, okay, 100K in pipeline, grand. How much was closed won? Say 20,000. Then you have a little leaderboard. Who are the closers? Oh, John's closing 30% of his calls, whereas Jason's only closing 12%. Why is that? Let Jason go listen to one of John's call recordings. Does he need sales training? Was he selling? Is he selling a different product to what John's selling? You can just start looking at all the data, being like, where is there bottlenecks inside of our process? Because the goal of a business owner is you want to come in and you want to sit down and you literally want to boot up a dashboard and be like, where does my attention need to be? So if you're sitting there and you pull up a dashboard and you're looking at sales metrics, your sales are down 20%, and then you go to the leaderboard and John is down 50% on what he was last month. Like, why is that? Is there something going on with John? Like, and then you go back, listen to his calls, or like get someone to go listen to his calls, whatever it may be. Or if a certain product you sold 30% less, it's like, why is that? Oh, we spent less on paid ads, or oh, the ads we got a 2x ROAS as opposed to a 4x. So you can pretty much pinpoint, as long as you just keep clicking the data, it will tell you the source of what's the issue. And from that, you can then go fix it at source instead of waking up every day and saying, oh, I feel like doing this today, or I feel like doing that today. And like, I love it where people talk about, oh, high ROI activities, blah, blah, blah. It's like, man, you don't even know what a high ROI activity is if you don't have a dashboard. Like,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
need you need to go in, get into the dashboard, and look at where your attention needs to be.
Where are you pulling that data from traditionally for like reporting and
So
all your
for
financials?
yeah, so for sales reporting, what I do is I set up something. So there's Integromat, which is another tool like Zapier. What's called Make now, or Zapier. Basically, how I do reporting on the sales side is whenever a new status in the CRM. So if you think of the CRM, you've qualified lead, lead booked call, lead cancelled, lead no showed, second call booked, contract sent, and then closed won, closed lost. Like a simple pipeline. Whenever those statuses change, that sends data to like a database. And you, like, when I say database, this can literally be an Airtable or a Google Sheet. Like, most of these businesses don't have that much data where it's like, oh, I need a SQL database, stuff like that. Like, you don't need it. So each time it will get populated, these new rows of data. And like what I would pull in, I'd put in the created date, the updated date, what lead it was, what was the email, what was the status, what was the opportunity value, like all these sort of metrics. And then when a deal gets closed, we have in the activation form, we let the closer put in what was the cash collected amount, and that will put into the sheet. And then I will hook stuff like their Stripe or like their PayPal or whatever their payment processor is, and that will go to a finance sheet as well. So all of the data gets pushed to like a massive Google Sheet or like Airtable database. And from there, I use a tool called Google Data Studio that can then make dashboards on the actual stuff. So in my actual, back in like my previous reporting job, I used a tool called Power BI, but that's specifically for Microsoft. So I'm in the process of like learning Google Data Studio to the ability that I know Power BI. So the reason being is because most of the guys I work with use MacBooks. So
Yeah.
I need to be able to use the software that's compatible with a MacBook. So that's something that I've had to kind of overcome as the months go by.
Fuck, man. And like, just thinking further about your business, like, what's your goal like going forward?
Yeah, so like my goal potentially is just emerge into like a fractional CTO or COO, um, have like maybe 1 to 2 subcontractors under me, take a revenue share of the business, because that will give me so much more incentive to keep innovating. Um, Having a rev share for more leverage, obviously, and then more skin in the game. Taking it to like what last month's 20K. Like if I could, I don't. So I'm not that money hungry. Like I'm not materialistic or anything like that. I like, obviously, I like money. It gives you freedom, stuff like that. But if I could get this thing to like, I don't know, 50K a month, like pretty soon, that would be nice. Maybe 50 a month, and not slaving like a dog for it. Like that's really the ideal scenario. Like I would rather, let's say right now, so let's say last month's 20K. Let's say I was working 80 hours a week. I would genuinely rather work 30 hours a week and make 2 grand. Like I would genuinely. I know there's a point in time that you have to suffer and you have to really put in the grueling hours to scale and get the thing off the floor. And everyone has their time in that. But to me, I'm 24 and early 25. Like I the last from the age of 18 to now, I really put my head down, and like I didn't do a whole pile. Like I really put the head down. And now I'm like reaping the rewards of it. Like I'm going out for food constantly. I'm going to be traveling a ton now, spending loads of time with family, which I it's funny. Like I obviously I moved away, but my relationship with my family is better now than it was, because time away from them, and then when we actually meet up, it's like unreal, because I don't
Yeah,
have to go into the office. I can just turn off the laptop and we can just spend our full days together, and it's unreal. And like money is not an issue. So it's like you can go out for food, do what you want, like it's all the normal stuff, and it's great.
100%, man. You get everything with none of the fucking drawbacks. Now, of
Yeah.
course, like you've slaved at it,
Hmm.
and similar enough to me, man, as in just being fully hog for like years at it. And of course, it takes fucking time. Like it takes many years. But I just was speaking with this on a podcast last week. I learned this from Propane Fitness. That they had a video. You might have seen it, and it was like if you work a 9 to 5, going from 100K to 150K a month, or sorry, a year, you need to increase your hours. So they expect the managing director to go from 60 hours to 80 hours a week, and they go from 150 to 200K a year. You expect them to work from 80 hours to 100 hours a week. And there's a point. It's like a convex curve. It goes
Yeah.
backwards, and there's a point in that curve where people want to hand back all the money
Hmm.
so that they can work less, spend time with their family, their kids, whatever the fuck to have. And I just think it's very interesting because like even when you're building your business, these types of businesses that we're building, even though they require a tremendous amount of fucking time and risk and
Yeah.
input, it's so that you can be able to do more shit and spend some time in fucking Argentina,
Yeah.
go to Bali when you want to go to Bali, and not
Exactly.
have to have so much to be responsible for.
Yeah. And I think it's a lot. And the other side of it is the actual fulfillment. So like me making the money, and it's literally from me doing the work. It's
100%.
it feels so much better than you would doing a good job in your 9 to 5 or whatever it is. Like actually, when I first started getting the first few payments, I was just like, this is so cool. Like I've done the marketing myself. Like I found the clients found me, or I found the clients, onboarded the clients. Clients actually trusted me with their money, and it's like actually got to do the fulfillment, and they're happy with it. And it's like
Yeah,
that's actually making your own money that way is like, especially if you're like entrepreneurial when you're younger and growing up and things like that, like the fulfillment from it. And I'll never forget like the first payment that I got was just like, that's still the best feeling, like just getting the first
100%.
payment. It's just so nice.
I've said this 1,000 times on my podcast, but there was the first time I worked for a company in State Street. It was State Street in London, and this guy, this contractor who like wasn't a full time employee, said to me, he was like, "The money you make for yourself will be more than you'll ever make for anyone else."
Yeah.
And it just fucking like your mind just goes. And at the time, I had like it was like e-com. It wasn't drop shipping. I had like vintage clothes coming from like Italy, and I was living in London, and I was just selling them online. And I actually had a copyright fucking strike from Nike, who threatened to fucking sue me for trademark infringement, so I stopped doing it. But it set the fucking it was a seed though, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And and to be honest, man, from there I went on to work for companies and make way more money. Like as in I can never say that I wasn't like that, because like I was I was up to a certain point very committed to that process, and I really
Yeah,
wanted to do it. And then after a while, then I think you just fall out of love with it. You know what I mean? You move on to other things, what you want with life.
yeah. And one thing for people, I suppose, if you're listening and you want to start your own thing, and let's say, at the beginning everyone might say like they're money hungry and stuff like that, but if you're getting into business, really understand why are you getting into business, because you're not getting into business for the sake of getting into it. The reason I got into it, and the reason I always want to get into it, was because you can be on your own hours. You're kind of in control of what you can make, and then you can kind of design the actual life that you want. So for me, like I said there a little bit earlier, I don't have crazy aspirations to get like 50 employees and go to 100 million or whatever the hell is. Like for me, I want to get it to where I have nice cash flow, healthy profit margins. I have a great network of people that I can lean on. They can lean on me, and actually live the life that I want to. Like I don't want to spend 100 hours a week working. Like I don't know who does. Maybe some people in the beginning are like, oh, I just want to. Maybe it's an ego thing. I don't know. Or genuinely, maybe someone actually wants to go to that sort of a level. But for me, what I need, like just figure out what do you need, what's your base costs, nice apartment, nice this, go out for meals, spend time with family, couple holidays, like all the nice stuff. You don't need that much money to actually do that.
Hundred
So when
percent.
when you get to like, so I can't talk for people who are at like 50K a month, but like when, like even like 20 grand a month, like what you can't, like if you're doing that consistently, there's not much you can't do. Like
Absolutely, man.
you'd have to be blowing a lot of money to run through it. So it's like, if you're trying to start something, get off the floor, you'd be surprised how quickly it can kind of scale up, and actually you can design kind of like the life you want to live day to day.
Man, that's a CEO salary. That's 250K a year for like a fucking SaaS company or something. That
Yeah,
that's why, and like, so I actually can speak a bit to this, I guess. I do think that this 100-hour fallacy comes from being like VC backed.
yeah.
And because like if anyone gives you money, if you gave me 10 quid, I would feel obliged to fulfill that 10 quid equivalent.
Mhm.
So when these companies raise like 30 million, 40 million, like I know a guy that recently raised 80 million, and like Jesus Christ, like it was like the worst fucking timing ever to do it. They've raised obviously way more than what they needed to, and I've never heard of the guy since. Like he's literally like locked away in an office in London. I've
Yeah,
never heard of him, never seen him. I don't see any PR anymore, and I know he's doing 100 hours a week because he has to fulfill the money, because the money's not fucking free. You know,
yeah,
to
yeah.
some degree. So there's that paradigm, and that's where I got really into the side of the world, because I was thinking like, okay, well, I can run a business off, like I think it's like $600 or $900 a month,
Yeah.
and from there, cost kind of increased at a certain point. But basically, I can still get up to, as you said, 20,000 technically a month.
Yep.
Um, and not have any of the headache.
And
Well,
it's,
of course, I'll
yeah,
still be working, but
but the
it's
the
not
overhead,
rosy. Yeah.
the great thing about these business models is they're super super lean. Like, and what I mean by that, like let's say last month was 20K, the actual cost to run that for me, obviously without my time, blah blah blah, it was 300
What?
quid to run it. Yeah.
With
Like,
an employee?
no, not for the employee, not for the employee. This is tech. The
Okay, but
employee,
let's
yeah,
say
the
let's say
employee
everything.
I've only just started. So yeah, like
Three hundred.
yeah. So the actual, like for me, like full numbers last month was literally 300 quid in costs, like 300.
I
Um,
would be the same. Actually, I would
yeah,
actually be the exact same. Like
it's so lean.
I'd have I'd have less, to be honest.
Yeah, like
My main thing is my courses. They cost a fucking load.
yeah,
some of
yeah,
them, some of them cost a lot of money, man. They're like
yeah,
they're like 1,000 a year or some shit to run. It's
yeah.
bullshit.
Like having having that ability to spin up something out of thin air, selling, like essentially when you're selling services, like you're just selling info at the end of the day. Like it's another point of info. It's just done for you. Obviously, I might dabble into the course scene soon. I've had so many people ask me, can I make a Zapier course or can I do something? Because another thing I suppose I haven't told you about yet, obviously we talked before this, I sold a guy not long ago for 4 grand on my SOPs. I just gave him the videos and a couple of consultation calls. So
What?
essentially, yeah, like he wanted certain stuff done. He didn't have the budget that obviously I wanted to get charged or whatever, get paid. And I was like, listen, I've got what you need. I was like, I've done it before. I was like, I'll give you the videos, but I was like, the problem is if I just gave him the videos, as I said before, there's a lot of nuance in people's processes. So you want to tweak
Exactly.
things, stuff like that. So I was like, I'll give you the videos plus consultation calls with it. So I gave him like 3 calls, 3 1 hour calls with the videos. So he can take the videos, start it, and then when he wants to cash in on the calls, he can cash in. And that's huge
Yeah.
leverage
So
for me. Very minimal time
yeah,
investment, but great money.
100%. So basically, it's a combination of do it for you and do it with you to some degree, but you don't
Yeah,
do any of that heavy
it's
lifting.
pretty much a done with you. Yeah, at the end of the day.
So I've like some experience with creating courses, and I use it as like a fucking downsell or just an extra
Hmm.
thing on the side. And I've recorded people like Charles Miller, who's recently relaunched his course and done incredibly well. And I think courses work really well once, and I've learned this the hard way, when you reach a certain level of audience size, for sure. So like my course is like $250. It's like how to start a podcast course, and like it's really detailed, like lots of templates, lots of outbound stuff. It's very like advanced, I would say. But is it really that effective? Not really, because I don't have the Justin Welsh or Matt Gray reach,
Hmm.
and that's like the difference. So I think like, and I kind of work as like a fractional kind of like advisory basis with a startup in Ireland, and I always say the exact same thing, is that like it's like where's your energy best spent? And if it's like a done for you model, if it's a 5K client, like you can sell those all day and it's
Hmm.
way more beneficial.
Yep.
So I just think it's when you reach a critical mass size, it's like, okay, this becomes valuable because
Yeah.
creating like, so I have a background, bear in mind, in video, audio, and everything. Like this is like literally what I fucking do. And it still took me 4 weeks to make. And that was 3 hours a day, every day.
Yeah. Jeez. Yeah. There's a lot of
You know?
investment, but there comes a point, obviously, like you said, with the social media following, when it gets to a certain point, pulling the lever with a course or some sort of a community is just massive. Like there's some Irish guys, fitness fellas like Sean Fitness and Sean Casey is his other name. I know one of them's doing about 50K a month, and just off a community where people are paying €50 a month to do gym challenges and talk. It's a Facebook group. He's doing 15K a month from that. He's got like 300 and something members, and it's just like a little community. Well, not a little. There's over 300 people. But
Exactly.
like you can, for him, the time investment for that is probably very minimal. Jumps in, talks to people, does a video, creates a challenge, blah blah. I think he does. He does winners. Like my friend, he's in it, and he won 2 grand because he lost like 20 kilos in 10 weeks. Um,
Jesus
then like
Christ, man.
yeah, so it's mad the
Community
community
pages are
aspect.
they're
Mm,
hot community pages right now. And I know Dakota is doing like cohort based writing.
mm-hmm.
Um which is like sick as well. So like I don't know, like they cap to 60 people,
Yeah.
everyone pays like 3K and it's like 6 weeks long or whatever it is. So that stuff is very like I think it's interesting, like because like I feel like courses was like a COVID play a small bit. Like
Yeah,
it worked really well during COVID. And I feel like now it's like community cohort based
I
because
agree.
those people who started are now a critical mass of 150, 200K. Like Dakota's at like 200K on on Instagram as well as Twitter. So like what does he need? Like 0.5% penetration to fill up
Yeah.
fucking $60,000. It's just
The
it's just a bit. Sometimes you got to see where you're at, and how it works.
Yeah, and I think it depends on the information that you're selling. Do you have an edge on competitors? Do you even have many competitors? Like I work with a lot of coaching businesses, and it really is kind of like the new wave, I suppose, rather than courses, because with coaching you can have a very, very tangible outcome. So a great thing that I see in the offers with coaching programs is there's a risk reversal. So it's like we guarantee to take you from 0 to 3K a month. um, if you don't make your investment back within X time frame, full refund, no questions asked. Now, I've launched recently with Mike, landing page guy. Um, he he's my friend in real life. He's not technical at all, so he started doing landing pages, and he got out of his 9 to 5, started landing pages, and he was like, if I could just teach people what I've done, he's like, I'd love it. I was like, let's spin up a coaching program. So I built the whole funnel, did the whole thing. This would be funny because it relates to data. I got him to take 30 free consult calls, right? So we brought up the email list, got up to a couple thousand, and then we sent out an email saying, hey, I'm going to do 30 free consult calls. What I did was I prepared him to do 5 questions, that he had to ask everyone. They're 15-minute calls, and he just needed to collect data, doing market research. What's the common goal that you want to get to? How much money do you want to make? Like, you'd think people say 10K a month. They don't. It's like, oh, if I could just make 2 grand a month doing this. So
Yeah.
what was your biggest roadblock? Like, all these sort of questions. And I got to put it into an Excel sheet. So that means I have all the data I need on our ideal person that we're pitching to. What's the terminology they use? What's the price that they want? What's their biggest obstacle? Everything like that. So I used all that data inside the email funnel then that pitched them to coaching. So we haven't even marketed this coaching program to Twitter, and we've done 30K in a month and a half. Yeah, so it's 3K a pop. We've gotten 10 people in.
And what's the
so we'll take you
model
from
of the
zero.
coaching?
We'll take you from 0 to 3K a month. The goal is to do it within 3 months, but you get access to the coaching for 12 months. And if you don't make your money back to 3K, you get a full refund. Because and actually as of last night, so the coaching's been up a month and a half. We had a guy closed 3K yesterday. There you go.
What the fuck?
Yeah. So it's nuts. So basically we're getting people in. Obviously we make sure we qualify them. We don't want people who aren't going to put in the work, blah, blah, blah. I've had to put serious accountability measures inside of the program. So like a part of the process, and the reason we haven't advertised this to Twitter is we're running like a beta test. I need to capture huge on data. I'm capturing what are the common questions people are asking. What can we put into a course for when they join the coaching? We make it like a game where it go, okay, complete these 6 modules. When you complete these 6, then you get a call that you can book with Mike. And then you talk to Mike for a bit. And then you go along on your next action steps. Because what we felt was they wanted to get on calls, but it's like Mike would be like, what have you done? And they haven't really done much. So Mike's like, what can we even talk about? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So you want them constantly pushing. So right now, like that's what we're doing. We've got like our beta round of people, obviously got a nice amount of cash collected for it, and people are seeing results already. And it's only been a month and a half.
Jesus Christ, man. You're into a lot of shit coming up for this year, so.
Yeah. And like the thing is, I get the insider look of all the big programs. So I work with people who are doing millions a year on coaching. So I understand like the sales cycle, sales process. I look at the fulfillment. Like I have eyeballs on everything. Same with agencies. Like I've been with agencies to do 300K a month, 50K a month, 10K a month, 100K a month. So I can see how they all work and how they all differ. And I think I tweeted about that today, where it's just invaluable, like the stuff that I get to see on a daily basis.
Would you ever want to build something like that yourself?
In terms of coaching?
Coaching, or like let's say a different type of agency or something?
I don't know. I feel like it's such a headache. Like from talking to the business owners and just seeing how it is, the responsibility becomes absolutely crazy. And just at this moment in my life, I'm still only a couple months at this. I'm enjoying it, but I'm like, geez, would I want that additional stress? Like, not that I get stressed easily, because I would have never got to the point that I'm at now. I can handle stress really, really well.
Of course, that's the only way you can get there.
Yeah, but it's looking at the other point. Is like, okay, what would I really like in terms of having something that's 300K a month versus right now? It's like I'd have a shit ton more responsibility, but would my life actually be better? I don't know.
Definitely not.
So I keep weighing that up on my mind. So right now the goal right now isn't even money. The goal right now is the network. I want to make as many friends as I can. I want to get to know a ton of people who are in this space. Obviously you doing the podcasting is great because you're all in that. But just the people and the word of mouth that's happened for me has been great, because if I help someone who does this business and he's pretty high level, he's got 10, 15 other guys he can refer me to easy. So all I need to do is just fulfill for this guy, be a genuinely good person to him, and he will give me so much more business in return.
And man, that's exactly what I've been doing as well. You know, like I hadn't a fucking clue what I was doing when I started my podcast, but I was kind of building those contacts. And then with my agency, how it looks to the world is how I build like referrals. Because if the podcast looks fucking banging and it's like really, really top quality, well then their friends who are high net worth individuals will message that person and be like, oh, how did you do this or whatever? And he's like, oh, it's this dude who's in the middle of fucking Asia that's doing it, you know? So it's like free marketing to some degree, because it's external. Like their stuff is user based, you know. So, man, we can wrap it up here. But I want to say a massive fucking thank you. Like, as in, I cannot believe you are from Cork. I actually that's hilarious. It's like, and like we could have many other conversations, man, that are much more We can do much more shit in the future, you know. But I want to get you out to Asia at some stage. I feel like
Absolutely.
you should be out here.
Absolutely. And we'll do another one of these in a few months now, or maybe next year, whatever timeline I want to do it. And hopefully I've made some progress, or maybe my views have changed. It'd be kind of cool to look back on.
Exactly, man. And my fucking business hopefully will be automated by then by you. So like
You love AI doing podcasts.
no, but 100%, man. Like, there's definitely a lot of work that like we could do even on my stuff because like yeah, it's custom, yeah, it's bespoke, but like there's like I've already thought of like a billion ideas, you know what I mean? So and
Yeah,
if it's anything I can do for you, man, of course, like in terms of your like who you want to contact or if you
absolutely, man.
need to understand something, man, like that's what I'm here for as well at the same time.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me on, man. It's been sick.